So, I have not been making very many entries on my YouTube channel lately, other than doing some exercise demonstrations. But I've had some thoughts after watching an interview the other day on Joe Rogan. So, Chris Masterjohn was a guest on it. So, Chris Masterjohn is a younger gentleman who is got a university education, knows a lot about nutrition, supplementation, and things like that. And I have listened to his podcasts from time to time, and I do think he has a lot of really good ideas and certainly knowledgeable. But he got off on a tangent, and he got off on a tangent about exercise and things, which I have to tell you, I was a little bit embarrassed by for him. I was embarrassed for him because to me, he said some really silly things. And it strikes me that a lot of people who have an expertise in a certain place will fall into expertise in other places and really kind of put their foot in it and, in my opinion, embarrass themselves. So, but I was very happy because here he is on Joe Rogan. So for those who may not know, Joe Rogan is likely the most popular podcast in the world. I mean, he's had President Trump on it. He's had all kinds of people on it. Matter of fact, some people feel that President Trump's appearance on Joe Rogan was very instrumental in helping him win the last election. So getting on Joe Rogan is a big deal. So I thought, well, good for him. He's a young guy who started out a few years ago. I've been following him probably for over 10 years. And here he is. It's kind of like a thing. So at one point, he starts to talk about exercise and longevity. And he gets off on a tangent. Now, in fairness, in case he watches this, he did point out that he wasn't saying this was a specific fact or proof of anything. He just thought it was food for thought. But nevertheless, what he said, he pointed out that of all the athletes, the two sports that people live the longest for are pole vaulters and gymnasts. So I thought, okay. And then he said, well, and I'm thinking to myself, they spend a lot of time upside down. Mm-hmm. And he was kind of speculating as to whether maybe the fact that they spent a lot of time upside down had something to do with longevity. And I'm thinking, Chris, where are you going with this, right? Mm-hmm. And then he started to point out about the different sports that he had been involved in over time. And he said that he suggested that people should challenge themselves by asking themselves what they weren't already good at and getting involved in some activity that they weren't good at to become more well-rounded athletes, such as pole vaulting or gymnastics or some sort of handstands and things like that. And I thought to myself, you're digging deeper and deeper and deeper. And what it told me, and I see this, is a basic misunderstanding of the difference between activity and recreation and actual exercise. So first of all, when you look at a certain sport and people who excel at a certain sport, a common mistake that we naturally make, which I can forgive those of us who aren't scientists for doing, is to think, well, if you want to have a swimmer's physique, if I want to look like Michael Phelps, well, then I'm going to spend more time in the pool because I don't really want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I'm not going to spend time in the gym working out like Arnold Schwarzenegger, or vice versa, pick your sport and things like that. But the fact is that the sport or the activity doesn't create the certain body. Rather, it's that if a person is genetically blessed with a certain body type, they will tend to naturally select themselves to be excellent in that sport. For example, Michael Phelps actually has feet. He actually doesn't need to wear fins. He has feet that are like this long. And of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger is naturally, if you see pictures of him as an 18-year-old kid out of Austria, he was already a big, bulky guy even before he ever touched a weight. So going back to gymnasts and pole vaulters, one of the things they have in common is, first of all, gymnasts tend to be short, male gymnasts, right? And they're small guys and they tend to be very lean. They're among the very leanness of athletes. So we know that obesity is not conducive to long life. And these guys, though, are naturally lean. That's part of it. Because if you're trying to do iron crosses or you're trying to do the things that gymnasts do and whatnot, being 230 pounds like Arnold Schwarzenegger, you don't see any 230-pound gymnasts, right? And pole vaulters, they tend to be taller, mind you, but they're still very lean and whatnot. So what I would suggest is that it's much more likely that the genetics that make them select themselves to be excellent in those sports just happen to be the same genetics that also contribute to longevity. So for somebody who's a scientist to suggest that it's because maybe they spend a lot of time upside down is kind of, I'm thinking, why would somebody say something like that? So I often see these people who should know better. Another one of my pet peeves while I'm on this is when I hear people talking about exercise and for strength training, and they'll talk about terms like power and speed and explosiveness, as opposed to just, and they'll talk about strength versus hypertrophy, right? And they'll say, well, if you want to do a certain thing, you got to train faster and more explosively, or if you got to use low reps for this and low reps for that, and things like that. And I look at that and I say, those terms, I mean, they've got definitions that they've made up for them. But really, it's all, I'm going to say this, it's all strength. And with this, by the way, I'm going to give credit to Drew Bay, who's talked about this. It's all strength. They're just different applications of strength. So for example, if you go to the gym, try to get as strong as you can, as safely as you can, and then take the strength that you got in the gym and then apply it to whatever you want to apply it to. So if you're a boxer and you want to be faster with your punches and things like that, go out and practice sparring and boxing. If you're an Olympic lifter and you want to do clean and jerks, then you have to practice that. If you're playing hockey, all these various things, and then you apply those things. Just create the strength first, and then go out and practice a specific skill that will allow you to create the application that you want. But yet this is being taught in kinesiology course in university, and some of these people are on basically talking about these things as though there's all these different parts of different strength. You're either stronger or you're not. You don't have like different kinds of strength. You know what I mean? You either have stronger muscles or you don't have stronger muscles. So anyways, that's my take on this, because I just think that, and the title of my speech is Stupid Things That People Say Who Are People Who Should Know Better. Thank you for listening.